Well, welcome back to our another episode of our Human First CEO series. I'm Nick Maida, CEO of Gainsight, and I'm so honored to be with Doug Merritt, or virtually with Doug Merritt, CEO of Splunk. Doug, it's great to see you. How you doing?
Nick, it's awesome to see you too. Really well, thank you.
Thanks so much.
I've got my ice machine on for my knee, so I'm good. Which is pretty damn loud.
And are you in an office, or are you at home right now?
I am, for the first time in many months, I'm in the office because we have our earnings call tomorrow. And we decided that socially distanced prepping live was much more effective in this case. So it's exciting to be in an empty office. It's still nice to see what it looked like and remind ourselves of life pre early March.
Every time I'm on a call and I see somebody in an office, I'm like, oh, that's what an office is like. I forgot about an office. So I only know about the kids' playroom that I'm working out of now in our home. So great, but it's so awesome to see you. For folks that are watching this series for the first time, a human first CEO. I'm honored to interview folks that I admire, that are CEOs. I think that look at all their stakeholders, not just as sort of business entities, but actually as human beings, whether you think of your community, your team, your customers, your shareholders. And Splunk has done an amazing job about that. I've admired you, Doug, and your leadership for a while. But before we dive into all that stuff, I'd love to have the audience get to know you as a human being. So just like everyone else, we're all quarantined. We've kind of restricted what we can do. We've cut off so many activities. Is there something that you're excited to get back to once the quarantine is lifted?
On a macro basis, just being closer to other people would be a god. I never thought that I'd actually say this. I've said this on a bunch of different calls, but I miss business travel. And really, I miss, and I know it sounds so self-serving or like a Splunk advertisement, but I really miss time with our customers and with our Splunkers. And the number one thing I would love, like I'm longing for, is a non-virtual .conf, which is our user conference, or sales kickoff, where you get to meet the thousands of motivated folks. We were lucky enough to have our SKO be one of the last big gatherings the last week of February, and thank goodness there are no infections and negative outcomes from that. But that was a great memory to go with. I can't wait till we can get back to something different than what we have now. I doubt it'll be what it used to be. Like there'll be a new normal, but certainly much some very closer than our social distance life.
100% agree. And it's funny, we have two things in common. One is our sales kickoff was the last week of February. So that was my last time seeing real human beings in person. And that brought us a lot of energy getting into the year. And then the second thing is I strangely also miss business travel. I have to admit, I miss United Airlines flights and the check-in at the Courtyard by Marriott in some random city, like that routine. I actually miss that. I know you've done that many times in your career, so sounds like
it's great. It's great, and if you're like me, the boundaries that I had put together, and part of that was I could actually do long concentrated work on things like international flights.
Yes,
like those were gone. Now I was on calls until 11 o'clock last night because we were doing virtual briefings in Asia, and you've got to match the time. So I started my first meeting at 7 a.m. like California time and ended at 11 in Asia. And I think we're all trying to learn new ways to operate, new boundaries, new normal with this environment.
Boundaries are a big thing for sure. So, I think it's a good segue to talk about, when we think about human first at Gainsight, it's all about looking at all the stakeholders, looking at the community, looking at your team, looking at your customers, and really treating them as human beings. Splunk's been a role model on the community side. Your technology is obviously used in so many different use cases. You touch a lot of the economy more broadly, and your team created this idea of kind of Splunk for good, which I think is really a role model for how companies are being active in the community. You want to share a little bit of what you all did there?
Absolutely. It's been Splunk for Good has been around for a while. We've slowly ramped up exposure and I guess seriousness around Splunk for Good over the years. And everything has got a double entendre at Splunk, and I love we're trying to use Splunk for good. Splunk is trying to do good. It's important to have purpose and passion in life, and it's our not-for-profit wing of the company. It's been focused consistently on a handful of key initiatives that we think are pretty lasting and broad-based across humanity. The human condition, what are we doing to help with things like horrible items like human trafficking, healthcare issues for humanity, et cetera. The second is education. Education, we believe, is kind of the core ingredient to economic progress, as well as enlightenment and communication. And the third has been environment. It's one of those wonderful things we get to live with every day, and we're seeing some of the effects of around us here in California and around the globe. It's one more avenue for Splunkers, customers, partners to get involved with around causes that they believe data can be a big difference maker to help drive things in a positive direction.
That's awesome. I like that. And it's one of the things I like about that is it's not just generic giving. It's you found, if I'm hearing correctly, you found a way to integrate your charitable work with kind of the technology and purpose of Splunk itself. So there's some principle behind it. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. To try and focus the company, we've always tried to pick 3 or less pillars or end users or initiatives so that we don't become generic in what we do. Like our solutions, focusing first on IT operations, expanding the cyber team, and now app dev. It's great that we've got this very powerful platform, but without understanding the needs and the uses, it's difficult to build a platform. It's the same thing for Splunk for Good. Let's pick a handful of pillars that we believe in as a company, and then for sure, we are excited about people doing whatever they want. They can volunteer time, they can donate money, they can evangelize on social media, but the core of what we're trying to do is provide them free software, free services, free education around data, with our belief that it's one of those key that as humans, we're great story processors and not excellent logic processors.
Right.
And bringing data to our stories is important. It's one of the key missing ingredients. How do we help, in our case, our 3 core pillar focus areas, use data to drive more rapid progress on their key mission and their key purpose?
That's awesome. Yeah, I think if entrepreneurs are watching or leaders are watching, I think integrating your business and your kind of mission charitably together is powerful. And I think one thing you did, which I noticed, it's a new title I hadn't seen before, was you had a Chief Social Impact Officer, I think a relatively recent role. Really interested in your thought process on hiring somebody and also elevating that to a relatively senior status.
Yeah, we recently brought on Chris Tegelmeyer as our first representative of that office. We have had leaders of Splunk for Good in the past, but we really wanted to ramp up the impact and volume. This actually was the decision made well before COVID. COVID has amplified all the need for how do we get band together instead of factionalize, and we're fighting that every day around the world, to actually make a difference in a meaningful way so we can actually get past this pandemic or all the artifacts of the pandemic. But so well before COVID, Scott Morgan, who's our chief legal officer, that was in his overall remit, also manages Splunk for Good, realized that without having a strong, brand recognizable, but highly innovative and passionate leader behind this initiative, would continue to do effective work, but it wouldn't be raised to the level that we needed. And we had I was overwhelmed by the response we got as we posted the rec, and incredibly qualified people came forward. And we felt Chris represented that perfect mashup of Splunk culture and really being a little bit disruptive and innovative with out-of-the-box thinking, but a huge experience set. A CEO of her own company, working with Stanford, and helping to influence so many different organizations in her past on the social impact stance. So very excited she's here, and we're all eager to see how she takes all the goodness around Splunk for Good and just accelerates it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's just an example of not just paying lip service to it, but doing something significant. So congratulations. And we've been fortunate to work with a lot of your teammates over the years. Splunk has an amazing culture, and I think that's been there even before you got there. That's always been a very unique culture. And I remember the T-shirts from back in the day, which you probably still make T-shirts. You've had to maintain that culture in this world that we all have. Just like I have had. In a world of being extremely distributed and your employees being at home, and a lot of anxiety people are dealing with. And just how have you tried to keep your team connected over the last 6 months of the challenges we've all gone through?
So before I drop in there, I'll just give a truly unsolicited and provoked commercial to you and Gainsight, Nick.
Oh, wow.
We went through really a 3-day almost battle within the exec staff when I first transitioned in to try and get down to 3 corporate priorities that could be the North Star and then the 2 accompanying stars for guidance for our employee base, and wound up with customer success as our number 1 corporate priority.
Wow.
And a lot of that, it was one, without customers, there is no Splunk. We're here to serve them, and they are the ones that afford everything that we do as an organization. And another part of it was we knew that we were going to go through a transition starting 5 years ago to be a cloud-based company. And in the cloud world, customer success is no longer even a remote luxury. You have to earn your keep every minute, every day, every week, every month of the year. And so really building up the customer success capability was critical to us. And you started that journey with us from the very, very beginning. And what you personally have done with the team and what your company has been able to help us thrive and promote has been a huge impact in building what I believe is one of the, and you guys have verified it, but I believe is one of the top customer success orgs in the world. So thank you for that. And now back to your core question of, all right, how do we actually keep people motivated, connected? What are we doing in the face of this highly unpredictable and crazy shelter-in-place world that we're driving? I'm not sure if what we're doing is much different than anybody else, but we really do, as you said, deeply care about our employees, our customers, our partners. This familial sense is a key foundational item of Splunk. I've described our company as I was going through the interview process almost 7 years ago, all the way through today, as a blue-collar culture. It's very humble, roll up your sleeves, get work done, undercommit, over-deliver, and part of that is we're really, really dependent on each other, really connected. So everything we've been doing has been trying to amp up that connectedness. We've given a significant increase in days off, just to try and give people a little bit of a break from the relentless pace that we're talking about with no hiding on international flights where you can turn off Wi-Fi.
Right.
We've instituted a Friday afternoon, Monday morning, no meetings culture, which was not what we had before, so we could take advantage of the international variances so that people get a little bit of break on a weekly basis. We've been doing all kinds of info sessions and sharing sessions, a lot of them through the employee resource groups, on mental health, on financial capability. We brought in epidemiologists and virologists, so trying to really help people be honest with where they sit today and support them on understanding the difficulties they're facing and giving them avenues to be proactive and feel like they're empowered with their own life situations. We ramped up our employee meetings at first weekly and then dropped them back to once a month. I moved my senior leadership team meetings, the top 100X people across the company, to a weekly basis. They're still weekly. So a lot of work. We gave everyone stipends for home upgrades so that we actually have comfortable chairs and effective communication mediums at home. So lots and lots of different things to try and recognize how difficult this environment is and how much we care about the passion, the commitment, and the perseverance of not just our employee base, but our partners and the customers on the other end. They're just doing incredible work in the face of a lot of uncertainty to keep their organizations moving forward.
Yeah, I know you said that that's not different from other companies, but I do think that's a lot more comprehensive than many companies have been. And I can see it in your culture, which we'll talk more about. So that kudos to you on that. One of the things that even though we're smaller, we try to do similar things, extra days off, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things we've wrestled with is the parents with young kids and the sort of virtual schooling. And, that's an area where we're not a school ourselves. So I sometimes feel like I'm at the limits of what I can do as a CEO, but yeah, I don't know if you've wrestled with that as well, but I think that's a challenge for all of us.
That's one I think we all need to continue to brainstorm on. We've been looking at and contemplating how do we contract with different organizations that can, on a more affordable basis, help families with some type of in-home tutor, given that they're comfortable having someone come to their home, as well as sparsely populated, well socially distanced locations where kids could go to school and zoom into their school or with some degree of assistance for many communities that won't open their schools or are fearful of opening the schools. it's definitely I've got a number of concerns going into the second half of this year that really deal with fatigue. The energy you feel when there's a crisis changes when you realize, oh my God, this is not ending.
Yes.
And I'm sure, like you, we saw a really amazing heroic boost through spring, and it kind of continued through summer. But there's so many different families facing additional hardship, whether it's school kids or people that are part of their lives are elderly or at risk. There's a continuous strain on folks, and I think there's a lot more that we can and should be doing that we obviously, Gainsight can't provision independently, and Splunk can't, but we can work with local communities to provide a little bit of relief to our employees. And again, we've got to keep the global economy moving. Without companies' growth and without the byproducts of growth, it's a very different world. The social programs we want are just not feasible because there's no one to pay for. So the economic engine is at the foundation. Go back to one of our giving pillars. Education, I think, powers economic growth, and without the economic engine, so many of the things that we have almost now taken for granted, as far as advances around the world in higher equality and more capability and higher services, we start to backtrack on. And I'd hate to see us retrench after 100 years of, I think, very successful advancing.
I fully agree with you. Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know about you, but I feel like as leaders, we've had to all grow our skill set this year because we have to think about the holistic picture of things like health and education and all these things that, in other years we might not have been thinking about at all, So I think that we've all expanded our skill set.
Without a doubt, it's the highest learning 6 months of my entire experience as CEO. But other companies as well. It's definitely, if you love learning, growth, and development, it's a great time to be alive. There's a lot happening right now.
I tell all of our managers and leaders, if you get through 2020, you're going to get through anything. So you'll get your badge this year in terms of leadership development and everything else. So
I love that framing. I love that framing. It's like the Sinatra song of if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
That's exactly right. I think that's so much to take away. Well, it's a good segue to, of course, my favorite topic, and you already shared a little bit, but I can't do any event without talking about customer success. And I will. You were very kind to flatter us. I will do the same in return. There is something special about the company culture that you and your predecessors and your founders and everyone else have built, which is showing up in lots of different ways. But one of them is how you think about your customers. And we've been fortunate to work with a very wide range of technology and other businesses in the pursuit of customer success. And as you know, Splunk's been a role model. John Sabino, your chief customer success officer, and his whole team have really defined, I think, a new standard for doing this. And I'm sure you want to go even further. I'd love to hear, maybe for the audience's benefit, a little bit of the journey of like how you decided to double down on that area and like what that looked like from a CEO vantage point over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I said, I'm so grateful for the help that you and your team have provided. I'm so impressed and in awe of the entire customer success organization. So all of you watching out there from this customer success team, you guys just rock.
Awesome.
So it really was a very thoughtful journey. My interview with the board for the CEO role, because I was an incumbent heading up the field at the time, was they asked for a from to. Where do you believe we are now, and what do we have to do to be successful? And my proposal, is one of those risky interviews of we've done amazing things, and the foundation of this company is off the charts. And being lucky is so important in business, and we are also lucky to be on the board or be part of Splunk with an incredible technology, incredible culture, and a huge category that we get to go fulfill. But if we want to be successful, we're going to have to blow everything up, everything. Starting, we've got to become a cloud company. That means a complete tech shift. It means a complete business model shift. And it means a complete cultural shift. And I'm saying this while we're growing in excess of 50% as one of the fastest growing enterprise software companies in history that had been public for 4 years and had never missed a quarter. It's like, you guys in this high-risk roller coaster ride with me? If for whatever crazy reason the board said, yes, that's the right answer. And as I said a little bit earlier, the cloud is that North Star of, and it really is going back to that customer success piece of true, customers' success. Data is very difficult, and to try and make a data platform, the solutions around data, much more understandable, workable, impactful, you really, really need both the rapid innovation that you get when you can publish updates every second, every minute, and you also need the visibility across thousands or tens of thousands or 100,000 or millions of users and organizations to be able to drive effective product management epics and capabilities and features all the way through to the right algo for the right moment for some type of action. And there's no way you can do that without cloud. So not only, I do think it's a much better business model, much better for investors, but if you really just go back to the North Star of without satisfied customers, you're dead, we had to get there. And one of the hardest portions, I think, about the cloud transition is the employee cultural change. Yeah. We've got to learn to do things differently. And for me, the hardest part about the employee cultural change is that you've got to move from, hey, I successfully sold something and now it's yours, good luck, to doing this together. I'm on the hook as much as you are. And from the moment we turn it on, I'm at risk. And I've got to, we are at risk together, customer and company. And we've got to earn your business every single moment of the day. And to do that, you need a really successful customer success organization. And we had so many companies around the world, including yours, that were so gracious with their time. The predecessor, John, he and I went out and interviewed a customer success officer one after another, just to understand what they were doing. We went to the conferences, and then as we had John Sabino, and he continued to groom, find different people within the organization, like Kevin Meeks, as well as bring in some additional people from outside the company. We just, I think, continued the unrelenting bar raising of let's pick a point in the future that seems really hard, find a way to get there quicker than we thought we would, and then raise the bar yet again. And they're still on that same path of at this point, I think, inventing new ideas. We borrowed a lot and then Splunkify them, but now I think we're a little bit more of hoeing brand new ground in new ways. It's really exciting to see what the team has done.
That's awesome. I love what you said about, I think that phrase of you signed the deal and now we're at risk together with the customer. I think that's a great philosophy. You can't take it for granted. Like the old days, we could take it for granted. You can't do that anymore. One thing you mentioned, you're at the forefront. You truly are. And I think one thing your team's really innovating on, and in fact, your team gets asked all the time to explain how you did it now, is this idea of a kind of integrated stream towards kind of customer value from the pre-sale to the post-sale to the product and tying it all together. Maybe give a little bit of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that again, so many great contributors and contributions through the years. I think very early on, back when we were still 100% perpetual, we did put a business value consulting team in place, and they were really effective in driving both people-driven and online return on investment calculation tools and services. And that was nice. And it's always great to help a customer justify the purchase. But again, as starting 5 years ago, as we're going down this path, it's like that is just that's just the contract.
Yes.
And even if it's not part of the legal T's and C's, it certainly is the implicit contract. Now, how do we tie that all the way through? That the work that the pre-sales team is doing, you need to bring in the customer success manager early before the sale closes so that they jointly own this roadmap, this landscape of expectation for the customer. And then eventually, and I think we've made some good strides there, all those elements have got to be literally worked into both the data we're collecting on a moment-by-moment basis to the customer, but also the capabilities of the product itself, so that it becomes almost a natural byproduct of using Splunk to achieve the value that we've orchestrated on a cyber operations center path or a infrastructure management and resiliency path, as well as some of the homegrown items. So we still have a lot more work to do. You're never done with this innovation cycle, but I've seen the seams between pre-sales, customer success, support, professional services, renewals, sales, again, really recede. There still are bumps in those seams, but it really needs to feel like one integrated team that just has different angles of the elephant that they're approaching, to make sure that there's high communication, high coordination, and the thing that's at the center is the customer achieving value and having the experience that we all agreed that they would have prior to them actually initiating that 1-year contract or 2-year contract or 3-year contract.
I think that's incredible, and that we've had the privilege of seeing that live, kind of up and close. And I think that idea of business value not just being a sales concept, because I mean it is funny how long the software and technology industry went just creating a great ROI model in the sales process, and then everything afterwards was a totally different experience. And I think you're on the kind of forefront of like driving that value end to end. That's very, very exciting.
Well, thank you. A lot more for the team, but it's been really. I say it again. I'm just so proud of the progress, the rapid progress the team has been making.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate it. It's been great to partner with you. Great to interview you here today. And we've talked about your community, you talked about your team, talked to your customers. I think just shows how much power there is in a business looking at all the stakeholders and kind of holding it all in your head and finding a way to balance it all. I always like to close out with a kind of quick word association just for fun to sort of see what's the thing that comes to your mind. So I'm going to say 4 terms. Just see first thing that comes to your mind like that. So digital transformation.
Flexibility and power.
Flexibility and power. COVID-19.
Opportunity and innovation.
Yeah, there is opportunity in everything. Customer success.
Mandatory.
Mandatory. I like hearing that. And then human first.
People at the center of everything. People matter. It's at the end of the day, we're a social species.
I totally agree. I think it's good. That's why we still want to do those business flights, even though they might be painful. So look forward to seeing you on some red-eye flight sometime soon. Probably not that soon, but really
great. Too. I'll have to find a way to share a glass of wine or coffee or something before that red-eye. But
I would love to do that.
Thank you for having me on. At the core of what we do is data. And as I said earlier, data is hard. Data is not something that comes naturally to the human processing capability. But it is so important, especially when we're facing items that can be so highly politicized, like COVID has turned into.
Yeah.
And I urge everybody out there to please gather as much data as you can, go through it with an open, curious mind, allow the data to actually tell its story to you. And often we're so surprised that we came in with a hardened opinion. And as we play further and further, it's like, oh my God, my opinion was wrong. But we need to rely more on data and less on hype and hyperbole and manipulation and social manipulation through media and other vectors. This is the time that we need to come together as a species, not fraction. And I believe data is a key component of that. And thank you for doing what you're doing with this podcast and broadcast series, Nick. It's really cool to see.
That's awesome, Doug. And what a great closing. I agree. Data can be the unifying factor for all the stakeholders we talked about. So awesome seeing you. Thanks to the audience, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you.
Vice versa. Thank you.